Hello and welcome back to the Awakening Philosophy podcast. My name is Jed and we are in the Meno. Last time we went through a detailed review of the parts of the text so far leading up to where we are. We talked about the significance of the questions that we've been carrying. What is virtue? Can it be taught? Why is Socrates saying he doesn't know but then gives these dialectics? How come Socrates is presenting what he knows or what he thinks or what he sees in a kind of structure that repeats? Why is the book following the same structure? And within that structure, within the overall structure, why are each of the parts also following that same structure? What is the significance of this structure? And is Socrates using it not only in how he talks about what he understands, but is he using it in the interplay between him and the person he's talking to? Thumbs up. And that structure we call the dialectic. So what's the significance of the dialectic? How does it relate to virtue? Can the dialectic be taught? And does it help us understand whether or not virtue can be taught? These are all the questions we have. Now, last time we also saw more of the stakes of what's involved in what we are doing in these questions, because we reflected about the conflicts that are happening globally. Are they following the same dialectical structure, only on something that is false? Or are the people engaged in conflict on a global scale, are they trying to communicate without the dialectical structure? Which is it? And can we use this dialectic, which might be related to virtue, to understand the cause of global conflicts and also how to solve them? So big stakes for humanity. But we also reflected on the fact that primarily this isn't for humanity, it's for you. It's for your soul. Humanity is our soul writ large, to quote Socrates from the Republic. The Republic, where Socrates creates a city-state, is the soul writ large. He says this is not a political text at all. This is just a metaphor to see the parts of our soul and how we can harmonize within ourselves for the purpose of enlightenment. Or virtue, justice. So we are learning this, what virtue is and the dialectic for our own souls. How do we talk to ourselves? How do we relate to each moment? How do we relate to ourselves? How do we relate to our friends and loved ones? How do we relate to any other activity we engage in this life and in the next? If what we are learning is a paradigm, and that's the key word that we're on right now in the text, then it has to be universally true. And that's why we're able to use the dialectic to understand the nature of conflict globally, as well as the conflict in our relationships, as well as the conflict within our souls. It has to be a paradigm, which means it has a kind of existence in the realm of being that is eternal, doesn't change. So it can be applied here and there. Think about beauty itself. If beauty was just a physical thing and a physical person got less beautiful, maybe with age, then would we say that beauty itself is no longer as beautiful as it was? Of course not. The idea, or the eidos, it has a kind of selfhood, a kind of existence. The eidos of beauty and justice and virtue, they're not diminished based on whether or not they're used in the physical world. Which is great, because we could live in a physical world that isn't acting in a very just way or a very beautiful way, but we as individuals can still access beauty and justice itself. Doesn't matter what people around us are doing. We can still do our own job, reach our own destiny. No beauty, no justice. Get that knowingness or nous through understanding via the dialectic, so that when we do encounter it, we can recognize it and understand it. And then when we come back into our physical form, integrate it. The way Socrates is integrating it and functioning with it. He's functioning with an experience and understanding of virtue. Now, we know there's some sort of experience involved because he said to Meno, you didn't do the initiation. You haven't left your body and experienced the realm of being yet, which is a key part of education. Very different from our world, which is why we have this channel. We are to reawaken true learning. The way we understand learning is look at the physical world, repeat tasks, don't really think for yourself, don't question the system, don't question authority, do as you're told so you can be a cog in the machine. Don't ask questions about principles. Don't ask questions about being. Don't ask questions about how we access the realm of being. It's a anti-logos kind of world we live in right now. That's what the system is based on. Now, we have talked about tracing the causes back through history, but suffice it to say right now, we are going back to a different kind of learning, a learning as a preparation for direct experience of truth and reality, with understanding as the method, so that we can not only experience it, but make sense of it, recognize it, and when we come back, use it and integrate it. Now, how are we going to use it and integrate it? That's what we talked about last time. We keep our eye on the truth of beauty or virtue, whatever it is we're talking about, while we do dialectics with ourselves and others. That was Socrates' first dialectic on virtue, first use of the dialectic to define virtue. It's an eidos that exists in being. That's the same for everyone. Men, women, children, doesn't matter. Again, doesn't depend on the physical world. You can access it whenever you are able to. So that's a different kind of learning. And again, if it's a paradigm, it should be used in the education system back in their day, in ancient Greece, and today, and on other planets, and a million years in the future, because it's eternally true. But that also means it's something that we can do and learn that we can also use wherever we find ourselves. In our incarnations, in the next world, in higher dimensions, wherever we find ourselves. Therefore, as we talked about last time, it's rationally speaking, it's what we should be doing while we're here. If this is a kind of thinking and functioning that is applicable wherever we go, then this must be the kind of paideia, fancy Greek word that means spiritual education, that we are here to do. Now, Socrates uses the expression education and nurture, meaning you don't just understand it, definition, you practice it at all times. You put it into your soul. Demonstration, definition and demonstration. So this is the education and nurture we take with us, and as we were reading in the Phaedo, is the thing that determines what we do in the other life, what kind of experiences we have in the afterworld, and where we go after those experiences, our reincarnations, or what dimension we reincarnate into. Because he did talk about after you've done your work, you have the possibility of escaping the prison of reincarnation to go to meet different people, different better men and gods who've completed their work, who are going on a different kind of journey. That's exciting. And of course, as Socrates points out, you don't have to wait until they bury you. In other words, if yoga or initiation or nous is separating the soul from the body, that's the same as dying. Only you come back if you're still alive while you do it. In other words, philosophy is the art and practice of death and dying. So there's the quote by Dr. Grimes. Philosophy, if you're doing philosophy right, you're dying many, many times before they finally bury you. And this was the comedic tragedy of Meno's education. He didn't get that. He left before doing that. And then he said, okay, well, I'm back in the game. Give me the answers. And Socrates face-palmed. Really? You think that virtue is just getting told answers? That's belief, my friend. Belief is what causes problems. You're gonna believe somebody else? Put all your chips in their corner? Hitch your wagon to their truck? So your development is completely based on their level of ignorance, their level of learning, their vision, their level of understanding. That's what belief is. You're sacrificing your soul to be a slave. As we said, our spiritual development doesn't depend on what other people are doing. Whether or not they awaken philosophy, whether or not they learn the dialectic, whether or not they approach their lives rationally as we are doing, whether or not they use that rational reflection on their existence to discover, we must be here to learn this. Doesn't matter if they do it or not, because it's understanding. We can understand it for ourselves. We don't have to believe that joker or that guy in the funny robes or that guy doing the funny chanting or that guy in the ancient Buddhist dress or that guy in the big funny Pope hat. Doesn't matter. Because they're not going to learn. Maybe they will, maybe they won't. But you can. That's the difference between belief and understanding. Your development is not contingent upon the development of other people, which means you're not their slave. Please develop more. Please do philosophy, leaders of the world. Please learn how to understand principles so you're not all hypocrites. Please learn about justice so you can actually implement a just world. Please realize what we're here for so you can stop the exploitation and genocides and murder and create the conditions for all of us to peacefully and have a lot of fun doing philosophy. What are they going to say? They're going to say, screw you. I'm going to do what I want. Doesn't matter. Because you can do it anyway. That's understanding. And you can verify the understanding for yourself in the direct experience. That's nous. What we loosely call knowledge in our translations, but we really need a new word for it, nous. Because it's not knowledge about physical world. Just like dianoia is not understanding the physical world. Dianoia and nous is understanding and knowing true being. So we have the possibility to reach our own destiny, independent and irregardless of what everyone else around us is doing. Yay. So long as we learn the paradigm. For it to be universal and open to everyone and understandable and experienceable nous, it has to have a kind of existence that is eternal, that is universal, that doesn't change. Notice things in the physical world change. That's why we call it the world of becoming. Things in the world of being don't. That's why we call it the world of being and becoming. So we are learning the paradigm and practicing it. That's our development. Last time we talked about how, if that's the case, then it would be, rationally speaking, the paradigm not only that can unify all governments and humanity under a mutual understanding of the truth, of justice, empathy, care, beauty, rationality, but also unify our individual souls, which would make it not only the paradigm for understanding, but the paradigm for spirituality. So all of the people we're bringing together are not just people who have different opinions about how to live in the world. Again, opinions and belief, they can be stupid and wrong and harmful and crap. Just because you have an opinion doesn't make it right. Even if our culture says, oh, everyone's entitled to their opinion, bollocks. That's not even true. We don't even think that. If you had the opinion that you were a dentist, do we say, oh, he's entitled to his opinion, let him hammer away on some children's teeth? No, you're not entitled to that opinion, my friend, because we act on our beliefs. It would be a cruel world if we actually believed that catchphrase we use, because we only use it selectively when certain people want to get away with their harmful ignorance. This fascist wants to, take all the money for him and his friends and say it will maybe one day trickle down. That's wrong and harmful. Oh, but aren't we all? Isn't he entitled to his opinion? No, he's just using that selectively. Well, it's my opinion that I'm president. Am I entitled to that opinion and function through it? So, the movement from opinions and beliefs to understanding and knowing, and the people, and if it's universal has a paradigm, it can unify all people who have their own different beliefs and opinions, but not just beliefs and opinions about how to live in the world, beliefs and opinions about the nature of the soul, nature of the afterlife, the nature of the divine, the nature of what created each moment and is sustaining each moment. In other words, spiritual traditions. It would therefore be the paradigm not only of education and understanding and governance, it would also be the paradigm for spirituality. So, all other spiritual traditions will be various levels of development within the paradigm. How far do Christian mystics go in their vision? How far do Buddhists go in their vision? How far do, you name it, Taoists go in their vision or experience of reality? And equally so, how far did they go in their understanding of it? How far did they go in their integration of that experience and understanding, in their functioning? In other words, how well can they use it in conversation to benefit themselves and others? Now, that's what we're reading. Socrates using in conversation his spiritual experience, initiation, and his understanding, logos. He's functioning with it. That's the dialectic. How well does he do it? And we look at other people. How well do they do it? How well can you sit down with a Buddhist guru and actually reason through your false beliefs to be purified from it and develop a perfection of true understanding? Or how many gurus say shut up and sit on the mat? Or how many priests say shut up and don't ask questions? How many pastors say, oh, you're just a sinner, just feel bad? How many Taoists say, oh, our thinking is a sickness of the mind, you just have to sit in stillness? These are all various levels of development until they reach their block. So we can judge. And you can only judge when you have a paradigm. Just like when you're a doctor, you have the model or paradigm for a healthy body, and everyone who comes into your office has some level of development towards the healthy body and has some problem. Using the paradigm or the art of medicine, you can judge. And then, using the art, respond appropriately to benefit. That's what Socrates is doing. He said, I've offered you a paradigm. Now, I'm not going to give you the answers because that won't benefit you or me. It'd make you not get better as a patient if I just give you the answers, and it would make me a terrible doctor. Equally so, for us to say, oh, all people who call themselves spiritual are just as advanced, and no one has any problems. That's bullshit and mean. You'd be a crappy doctor. You would be sued for malpractice. We have to instead learn the paradigm, have a direct experience of it as much as possible, be that through imagination or direct experience. One will lead to the other. Thumbs up. But also understand the paradigm so we can use it for judging ourselves and others and responding in a beneficial way. These are things crucial and essential for there to be an art. So we could say, not only is this the paradigm for understanding, the paradigm for education, the paradigm for how to govern the world, and the paradigm of spirituality, it's also the paradigm for art. It's really turning out to be the paradigm of all paradigms, which is fantastic. And might also explain where in the realm of being, if there's beauty itself, if there's justice itself, and if there's this dialectic, maybe dialectic might be quite high up. Now, this is one of the questions we wonder about in philosophy. We're learning all about these eidos, or aspects of the realm of being, the things that we recognize and understand when we have the experience. But one of the questions is well, what comes first? Or what rules the others? Or what is more causal? Or what is higher? This is understanding. Understanding involves recognizing the parts or the terms, but also recognizing how they're ordered. What causes what? If you understand a toaster, what comes first in a toaster? What causes what? How would you rank the parts in terms of what causes the toast to be cooked, or what causes the electrical current, or what's the most important part? Same too with understanding anything, including the realm of being. So one of the questions from that we get is, well, if this is the paradigm of all paradigms, it might be quite high up causally among all the other aspects or eidos that we learn about in philosophy. So that's a lot of fun. So yeah, so back to the idea of paradigm, the paradigm for art, but also the paradigm for spiritual traditions, because we can say, well, all spiritual traditions has some sort of image or experience of reality, and you can have various different levels of experience. For instance, we know that we can be miserable and sad and depressed, and we can be happy. That's a different state of mind. We can feel this loving gratitude about the world. That's a higher state of mind. We can have this experience of being in flow or being in the zone. Sometimes athletes get into that. Sometimes you're in the flow or in the zone as an athlete or a musician or a dancer, and you feel like you're kind of watching yourself from above in a weird way, as though you are not your body, and you were never in your body to begin with. Your body was in you, so you can look from above. And then there are other experiences, astral traveling, people call it. A friend from the last string. And then there are higher experiences still. So if that's the case, then to understand a paradigm means to take all the terms, order them, and rank them. So, like we said just then, so too, we could rank and order and to judge different experiences. How high is this person's experience or vision? And then we can say, well, hey, someone might have had the greatest vision possible, but hasn't understood it at all. Maybe he dismisses it. Maybe he calls it craziness or illusion. So we could rank what's his understanding of it. Now, you could also have a high experience and misinterpret it, Oh, I saw the face of Mary because I grew up Catholic, and the only spiritual word for beauty within my vocabulary was the blessed, beautiful Virgin Mary. So you might have an experience and walk away just confirming your ignorant beliefs that you had to begin with. So we also need to judge not only their highest vision and their understanding, how well have they removed their problems, their false image of beauty, and their false beliefs about truth and beauty. Balloons. Where are you at in your vision and understanding, and where are you stuck? In your false image of self and reality and your pathologos, false beliefs. So false vision and true vision, true understanding and false understanding, or pathologos. Simple. There's your paradigm. Hooray. But not only do we judge that, we also judge how well somebody has utilized both. How well have they understood and freed themselves from their false images of self and reality and their false beliefs about self and reality? And how well have they used that freedom to develop a true experience of self and reality and a true understanding of self and reality? And taking both together, how well have they implemented that freedom from what's false and wisdom of what's true? How well have they included them both to function with it? Functioning is key. How well can you actually be a doctor? You go to medical school, you have to remove your false ideas about sickness and health. You have to develop a true image of the healthy body and a true understanding of the healthy body. But eventually you're going to have to use it and do some doctoring. Put that little round thing on your forehead and get the paddle pop stick and stick it in people's mouths and say ah, and say, "Oh, I can see you have tuberculosis. And here is the medicine that will benefit you." Got to function with it. Again, within all paradigms or within all spiritual systems, or equally so, all education systems or all political systems, how well are they doing that? Look at any leader, any guru, any teacher, and say, how well have you done those two sets of twos? How well is your vision of the ideal, your understanding of the ideal? How well have you removed your false vision of the subject and your false beliefs of the subject? And how well have you integrated the two into your being, nurture, so that you can function with it? How good a teacher are you really? How good a leader are you really? How good a guru are you really? So there's our paradigm. Simple, isn't it? Yes. Fun. Yes. That's why philosophy is so rad. It makes the seemingly complex, the many, simple by making it one and whole. Like Socrates' joke. Don't spill drop a glass at a pub, because everyone will say, and they will all, "Hey, don't make one glass into many. Our job as souls is to make the many into a one." That makes it simple and understandable and clear. And also a single thing to keep our mind focused on at all times that we can therefore use to function with it. This is all what people at the pub are saying to you when you drop the glass. And by the way, if it's a single unified one and not a broken glass with many parts, we can have a single focus. To have a single focus is formally meditation. So if we want to not only function well in the world with a harmonized soul, focused on the one thing, with our eye on that thing at all times, not only will it help with our virtuous functioning, but it's formally meditation, so it will allow us to even join with that singular object of focus. Right? Go to any pub and drop a glass. This is what everyone will start yelling at you. Every pub in the world. So don't make that one glass into many. That isn't virtue. All right, so all of this that we went through was to highlight the stakes, the importance, the significance of why we're reading the way we're reading. Why are we investing our time in this? And we could be doing something else. There are a lot of great animes we could be watching. It is therefore, and by the way, we are learning from someone who is at the pinnacle, someone who has done both things. Formally philosophy on the one hand and philosophical midwifery on the other, and is functioning with it. We are seeing someone in action. We have the ideal, which is a fantastic gift. Socrates is. I mean, he called himself a gift to humanity from the gods, but really, that's something we could laugh at because a lot of dumb people have said that. I'm God's gift to women, says many a sleazeball. So it sounds funny to hear someone say it, but for Socrates, it was actually true. Socrates is the paradigm that everyone else bastardizes. So we're seeing it. We're really fortunate to have this gift of someone who can show you what it's like to be that. What is the ideal of guru and ruler and leader and teacher all at once? If it's the paradigm of all paradigms, he would be all of them. And he is functioning as a guru, and he is teaching us, and he should be the leader of the world. And he's the leader of the conversation. So we're really fortunate to get an example of a person who can do it. So really good for us. And also to have a singular imagination or image of a person functioning this way, to judge ourselves. When do we fall short of what Socrates does? When Meno started making fun of him for not knowing what virtue was, what did Socrates do? Did he go, oh yeah, that's right, you can tell people I don't know what virtue is, but also tell them I've never met anyone who does? And Meno said, what? But haven't you met my teacher? And Socrates is like, uh-huh. Damn. Okay. Kind of, he didn't take it personally. He stayed to focus on the truth. He did it in a charming way. He clapped back in a charming way. So it's a kind of standard that we have. When we get attacked personally for telling the truth, can we keep our cool in that way? Can we tell the truth in that way? Can we even clap back and say, hey, call somebody out? Say, hey, yeah, you don't know it either. But do it in a charming way that won't get our nose punched. So it's a kind of ideal. Bedside manner, we call that. Charm, Socrates calls that. So, as a paradigm for leader, teacher, guru, ruler, maybe even doctor of the soul, that's what we're doing here. And now, all of those things are the best things ever. If you're ever a teacher of anything, if you're ever a student of anything, if you're ever a soul that is alive here, that needs to learn. If you're ever a leader of anything, did I say that one twice? Then you should be reading this. And that is another example of a tragic irony, or a theatrically tragic or a comedically tragic fact about our world. All of those things that we can see, we can only see because we have gone through the text word for word, part by part, with an open mind, not pretending we know, because we have a PhD or because we have a title or because our culture values people who pretend to know more than people who are open and curious. No, we read it with openness and curiosity and wonder with our friends in the community. You can join us on Discord and on Twitch and on YouTube. And as a result, we've seen that, well, this is something that everybody should be reading. Because it gives you the model of the paradigm that everyone should be learning. Then why don't we? How tragic. Or funny. Now that's another question we have. What's the difference between comedy and tragedy? Well, you could call it tragic because of the tragic consequences of individuals' lives and incarnations and afterworld experiences, having not actually learned virtue and the significance of learning the paradigm. You could call it tragic because of the way that our world is treating people, torturing, murdering, exploiting, built into all of our systems, which is crazy irrational. That's all tragic. Tragic because they're all avoidable. They're not necessary so long as we learn the paradigm. But you could turn around and say it's comedic because we can get out of it. We can still understand even if that other tragic stuff is happening. And if there is such a thing as eternity, even if humanity destroys itself, there is still a possibility for us to be reincarnated, perhaps. I don't know. And learn the thing that we're here to learn. So it's a good question. What makes it comedic and what makes it tragic? Maybe the possibility of freeing ourselves from the tragedy can allow us to turn around and laugh at the situation we used to be in. But when you're in it, sucks. What happens when I do this? Rain. All right, so either comedic or tragic, depending on how well you're able to take that many and bring it into a whole and realize everyone should be reading the Meno to get the paradigm, to do whatever you're doing, including be a rock star, or be a loving person. There you go. So all of that was to highlight the significance for everything we do, every activity we're engaged in, every moment we relate to ourselves, every moment we function towards others in this life and the next, and whatever reality we happen to find ourselves in. If you are fortunate to have higher experiences of reality or initiation experiences, this is all the significance of the paradigm. Why do we have to go through that and do a little review again? Because it's the stakes. As we said, we have to learn, which requires effort, requires sacrifice, requires a singular focus, requires not getting off in tangents to do with fun little things like that, not getting too distracted by them. And it also requires effort and sacrifice equally so to sacrifice our false beliefs that we might be identified with, or we love, or we have our loved ones identify with. To see our beloved images as no longer beautiful and true, that's a sacrifice we have to make. And by the way, that pathologos will try and sabotage you. You're not good enough. You can't do it. Do something else. So we need to have with us in our back pocket everything we've reviewed just now and last time. So we can turn around to that inner Meno and say, bollocks to you. This is the only thing we should be doing. For every art, it is the paradigm of spirituality. It is what we need to be doing while we're alive, what I need to be doing while I'm alive. And I can do it because I wouldn't be alive if I wasn't able to. Even Meno can listen to Socrates. Of course I can do it. I'm supposed to be a Socrates. That's the paradigm. So maybe one of the reasons why Socrates says, I don't know what virtue is because it's open to all of us. It's not a personal thing. It's not a who question. Who are you to say? Are you Socrates? No, it's not a who question. It's a what question. Because anyone can be a what. What is the truth? So we need to have that, the stakes, the motivation, and also the rational understanding of our stakes and motivation to reason with any blocks or people, internal or external, that come up and say, don't do it. That's why we were doing that, what we were doing. So with that in mind, let's knuckle down and get the specifics under our belt now that we know how important it is. Meno. It was comedically tragic that you were more attracted to the dialectic I did about the physical world. And the cause, the diagnosis is because you left school before the mysteries, and so you remained uninitiated. Learning is a spiritual exercise. It's what we're doing. Meno says, I'll remain so long as you give me many answers. Socrates says, you boy, you stupid boy, you idiot. For your sake and my own, I'm not going to answer you in that way. That would be a poor doctor. It wouldn't help you, wouldn't benefit you, wouldn't benefit me. So let's stop. That joke when somebody at a pub breaks a glass and they say, stop making many out of one. Let's see if we can understand virtue as a one, as a whole. Now you have a go. So this might be the demonstration section of the text. So we've got three dialectics and a conclusion already. From Socrates, that could be the definition. This word paradigm could be the understanding. Remember, we had Socrates give his definition of virtue, what it is as an idea that you keep your eye focused on while doing dialectics at all times. He used the dialectic to explain that for us. He talked about how it functions. That's demonstration. We use it to manage ourselves well with balloons. And if we do the dialectic in that way, at all times, we know we're being just and never unjust. Number 3, he broke down the dialectic into divisions. Here's a dialectic on geometry. Here's a dialectic on color to do with the realm of being. And here's a dialectic to do with shape, how being connects to our physical perceptions. And then what's the conclusion? Definition, demonstration, division, conclusion. There are only 4 steps in the paradigm of all paradigms. Pretty cool. The conclusion is it's a paradigm. So 4 sections already. As a whole, we could say that's the definition section. So we've already got 3 levels of dialectic. Let's write it on the board. So we've got his definition of virtue. Or maybe dialectic, not sure, because he did say he didn't know what virtue was. Then he gave a demonstration. Oh, by the way, within that definition, he had definition. It's an eidos in being. He had its demonstration. You keep your eye on it, doing dialectics. And then he had division, appeals to all people. So we talked about how this is the same for men and women. No, it's the same for size, strength, health, for men and women. So his conclusion, therefore, what was his conclusion? Oh yeah, doesn't change. Let's get it nailed down correctly. Therefore, all ideas don't differ when demonstrated in men or women. Therefore, excellence in relation to excellence doesn't differ. Okay, so doesn't differ. That was his conclusion. So whatever we find about virtue, it doesn't differ. So it's true. That's our idea of paradigm. Doesn't differ. Oh, handwriting. Doesn't differ. Okay, so that was a definition. And then he went on to do a demonstration. Of how virtue functions and what do you do with it. And again, within there, he did definition. He defined it as managing well. Then he did a demonstration. Yes, you how do you manage well? With temperance and justice, by the way. And then he did division. If you manage well with temperance and justice, you're more likely to reach the good, and that's called success, the good of what you're doing. And that divided out is true for men and women and slaves and children who don't seem to manage anything. Therefore, our conclusion was, if it's then you are managing yourself well, because slaves and children don't manage a house or a city. Our conclusion is you use virtue to manage yourself well at all times. You're more likely to reach the good. And if you do that, you can know that you are acting with justice and never injustice if you're trying to do this at all times. So this is really cool. So if you're ever down or thinking you're no good or your life is meaningless or the cost of living crisis is really crushing your soul, you know, whatever I do, under whatever conditions I'm in, and maybe if I'm even out of body or in another world, so long as I'm doing this, then I am managing myself well. Let's write down that conclusion. You are managing yourself best to reach the good, and that's always just to do this, and it's never unjust. You are never unjust if you are doing your best to use the dialectic with an eye on being to manage yourself well. Isn't that interesting? So whenever you're confused or having a bad trip or whatever, so, well, let's use the dialectic on whatever I'm doing to find the good of what I'm doing, because that will be managing myself well. And even if I have no idea about this environment, I know that this is the just I can do. Okay. Then there was the division. And we saw the whole thing being used for, so there was a definition demonstration, division, and conclusion for color, shape, and also geometry. There's our divisions. Meno said, oh, I like the one that was more about our physical senses. And then we all had a good laugh. And then the conclusion. Now, can you find somewhere in the text, you might have to do some work. Can you find the DDAS? Oh, DDDC. Let's say DDC, let's say. It used to be called DDAS because conclusion has AS together. But AS sees it as two things. So I like DDDC. Now, DDAS actually means DDDAS, but it's annoying to say it 3 times. So instead of saying DDAS, let's say DDC. Can you find the DDC? Can you find the definition, demonstration, and division, and conclusion? Can you find it? Well, here's a hint. Maybe the conclusion was the very end of that section. We came to a paradigm. So that would be the conclusion. After going through all of this, not only do we have a better understanding of virtue, we can pull away from this the paradigm to how to think, which might be virtue. Notice, we've got D, 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 C. And within each section, we've got D, 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 C. D, 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 C. D, 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 C. And now, as a whole, all 4 of them do this thing. People who do that, they're so artful. This thing here, mine are always weird looking. Oh, look. I don't know, look dumb. But some people do it really beautifully. So of all here, we can say all of that is a... Now look, what are we doing? We have noticed a pattern. What do? Push the implications. Push the implications. Keep going. You've defined something. Oh, maybe there's a pattern. Can we see a demonstration of it? Yeah, we just did there. Now division is push the implication. Can we apply it to color? Can we apply it to shape? Can we apply it to geometry? So that's division, pushing the implications. So again, this is how you teach people. This is how you learn. This is what it means to be a guru. This is what it means to be a leader, and so on and so on and so on. Just a reminder of why we're going into such detail. So pushing the implications would be to say, well, if there is a structure within these 3 and even within the parts, then this could all be a part of a greater whole. This could be the definition of the text, definition section of the whole. It would make sense. Okay, so now we can ask, does that mean that after we have the paradigm, we draw a line under that and say, is this the demonstration? We talked about needing to have a paradigm of being a guru or being enlightened or being a good, virtuous soul, being a true human. It's not just good enough to have an understanding of it, like having an understanding of the healthy body. You also have to have a vision of a healthy body if you want to be a doctor. A vision of the ideal, right? The ideal toaster, if you're a toaster fixer. An ideal guru, if you're interested in spirituality. An ideal teacher, if you're interested in learning and education. An ideal leader, if you live in a world where there are leaders. If that's the case, is Socrates going to now demonstrate what it would be like to have integrated this and have virtue? That's our question. So, what does he do? He says, okay, now I'm going to respond to you. Like I've just told the truth, now I'm going to use it. Right? So, let's go back to our board and see where we are in breaking it down. Wow, that's way, way away from everything. Okay. So, right, so this is where we were here. Section 2. Demonstrate the paradigm, Meno. Okay, does he do it? No. He says, here is a quote I like. Ever talked to a person? Hey, do you know what's good in politics? Oh, let me quote the founding father. What's good in how to live? Let me quote the Bible. What's good in relation to, I don't know, how to treat people? Let me quote this poet I like. Let me quote what my dad told me. My mama told me. Do people tend to just quote people that they already agree with? Or quote people that will give them a justification for whatever bullshit they already believe in? I don't like that. I'm going to listen to this guy misinterpret the Bible in the right way that I like it. He's going to selectively ignore that stuff about going to hell if you eat shellfish, going to hell if you, well, not going to hell. I don't know if hell's in the Bible. If you have clothes that are a combination of fabrics, and listen to him reinterpret the sexist stuff. Because I want to be a sexist, because I already have the sexist beliefs. Isn't that how humans work? Very few people are doing philosophical midwifery to uncover the false opinions they're carrying that's causing harm. And very few people are doing philosophy to actually figure out the truth. So Meno is a great representation of maybe what we used to be before discovering this channel, or the people we find around us in the current state of the world right now in this period of time. Finding a quote from a poet he likes, who he already agrees with. That's what people do. It's a good way of pretending like it's a justification, because then you say, well, hang on, what makes your dumb opinions true? Oh, I'm quoting this other guy. But that doesn't mean it's true. You're just kicking the can down the road. Well, what makes what he says true? Hey, shut up. We all agree that the Bible is true. No, we don't. That's just your crazy cult community who thinks that. No one thinks the Bible is true, except for people who are collectively agreed to pretend that it's true. You can't do science on the Bible. You can't create anything. That stuff about shellfish won't make sense. No one does. We don't think shellfish is the devil anymore. Many people wear clothes with multiple fabrics, even though that quote in the Bible says it's evil. The founding fathers, a lot of those people were rubbish, terrible people. Just because you can, hey, same thing with philosophy, the way it's currently taught without the spiritual side. What makes your opinions right? Well, I can quote Freud, I can quote Jung, I can quote Kant. What does any of that have to do with Bob's Burgers, I ask you? Well, it's a way of sidestepping, avoiding, hiding the question, what makes something true? Now, we know that what makes something true is the paradigm. The paradigm does. So when someone says, who are you to say? You say, well, wrong question, my friend. Who is a question of authority. You mean who? Like, who do I want to quote? But I'm just going to quote a who that I already agree with anyway, and my opinions are all stupid and dumb. Who cares what my dumb opinions are? Socrates said it. I don't care what Socrates thinks. I care what the paradigm says is true. It's very easy to disagree with Socrates, says Socrates. It's harder to disagree with truth. So Socrates quote. Who cares about stupid opinions? No one. So what makes something true? Exactly. What makes something true? Not who makes it true. This is about slavery and oppression and opinions and belief. What is a question of paradigm. I don't want to eat a monkey. I want to know the paradigm. That's a what question? What is the paradigm? Now, this is why we're not able to have an actual conversation with political leaders right now. Because political leaders, it used to be flip-flopping was bad because it shows that you don't have integrity because you're contradicting yourself. But now it's like, well, hang on a second. Says who? Why is just changing? Like, for example, in the current drama of the American political system, J.D. Vance a couple of years ago said, oh, Trump is harming people. His racist rhetoric harms Muslims and immigrants, the people that we are supposed to be protecting. He's a modern Hitler. And now he's pretending that none of those things are true, and he's saying the exact opposite. We used to call that flip-flopping. But now it's like, oh, who cares? Who gives a shit? If Trump says it, then it's true, right? If Jesus said it. If founding father said it. If Socrates said it. No, Socrates says, I don't know. Not about Socrates, my friend. So why would flip-flopping be actually bad? That's the question we need to ask. Because flip-flopping means you are not using a model. If suddenly this was bad and this was good and then suddenly it changed, then you're not using a model. You were just using stupid, dumb opinions that cause problems, you idiot. Model doesn't change. If it doesn't change, it should be true in 2016 when he's saying that Trump is Hitler, as it is in 2024 when he's saying, oh, Trump is the savior of fascism, saving us from tyranny. If you are contradicting yourself, you're not using a model. That's called being a hypocrite. That's why every single interview with a politician, when they ask him a question, they give an answer. Okay, so that's your answer. What's the paradigm you're pulling that from? What's the paradigm of truth that you are looking to and keeping your eye on to diagnose whether or not the country is sick or healthy, and then offer the prescription or remedy to make it so? What is the paradigm? This is why we go to university. Do you have an image of the paradigm and an understanding about it so you can function with it to become a pilot? What's the paradigm? Every time they give an answer, they need to nail down the paradigm. The other team are a liar. The blue team said this, but then tomorrow they said that. Oh, okay, so your paradigm is if you change your mind or contradict yourself, then you are bad. Okay, so if I find an instance of you doing that, then the paradigm would say that you are also bad and shouldn't be elected, right? Every single interview on TV should have a board behind them where they write down the paradigm that they are appealing to when they use their bullshit political rhetoric. America first, what does that mean? Nail it down. And if you show that you are not following the paradigm, you either don't have one or you're not functioning with it. Either or, you are a corrupt doctor who needs to lose their license. So whenever a politician contradicts themselves or flip-flops, then there should be a hearing. Wait a minute. You're not operating from a paradigm. You're either a bad doctor, corrupt doctor who's not using the paradigm at all times. Sometimes he wants to help his patients get healthy. Sometimes he wants to harm them. You go to prison when you do that. Or you don't have a paradigm, so you're practicing without a qualification. Go to prison for that too. Until we realize that the questions of who makes something true is bullshit, the question is what makes something true. You say 1 + 1 = 2. So who says? What? Who says? What kind of a question is that? It's a nonsense question. Who says? It's what says. Who is about belief. Beliefs can be terrible. What is about truth? Okay, so when you say what are you pointing to? A paradigm that has to exist eternally, which implies the realm of being, which opens up humanity to not only be able to hold politicians accountable for injustices and create a sane, rational, mature world, but it also opens us up to do our quest, which is to discover truth and being. This materialism way of thinking that rejects the existence of a soul and of mind and of consciousness and the realm of being, where the paradigms live, where truth lives, materialism or stoicism is bullshit, is limited. And we can say it's bullshit, but a better way of saying it is it's limited. For example, Stoic people use the language of virtue, and so they do think there is some sort of better. So they're not completely at the bottom. That's a nihilist. Nihilists have a lot of work to do because they don't think there is such a thing as good and bad at all. They don't even think there is anything that could be good or bad. And then above that, we have relativists. Okay, or physicalists. There are physical things, but there's no such thing as good and bad. Then you have relativists. Okay, there are physical things, of course, and there is good and bad, of course. I wouldn't eat a bad hamburger, but it's all relative, really. Like, what seems beautiful to you is not beautiful to me. And then relativists, and there are people who are actually, well, of course there are beautiful things. We wouldn't have the supermodel industry if there wasn't such a thing as beautiful. There are standards, but they're only physical standards, and so on and so on. Until you realize, okay, it's not just physical standards and principles. There is an eternal standard and principle that has to exist in the realm of being. And then the question is, how do we access it? We don't. And then some people say, okay, there is a realm of being, but we don't access it. Then people say, okay, then above that, people who realize, okay, there is a realm of being, we don't really access it, but we can get close to it by joining groups and chanting and singing and being a part of something greater than our whole, sports, whatever, chanting praise for God. And there are people who go, well, actually, we can actually experience God, but only now and then. And so on and so on. Then we can experience God as a whole. And then we can go beyond it to the cause, and so on and so on. So this is levels of development of states of mind or vision and understanding. The things that we talked about to begin with. So people who think, oh, there's no such thing as a realm of being, that means there's no real paradigms. There are no standards to hold politicians to account when they contradict themselves or pass laws that benefit their rich friends and meanwhile harm everyone else they should be caring for. Who cares? Let them do that. You can't call them a Nazi or a tyrant or a fascist. Words don't have meaning. They're not really doing a genocide. That's just your opinion. Bullshit. There has to be a standard that has to exist in being. And when we recognize that, not only do we have standards for our leaders, which we have for every other industry, you can't fly a plane without there being a standard that you can understand and visualize and then function with as a whole. But not only does it allow us to do interviews right, to do journalism right, to all of the things that are frustrating us when you see, I don't know, some politician on The Daily Show with Jon Stewart. You start off hopeful, oh, Jon Stewart's an intelligent person who actually cares. That's rare on TV. So let's see him hold these people to account, and then bullshit happens. Nothing happens. It's a wimp. Why? Because he doesn't nail down the paradigm behind the political rhetoric and bullshit and then hold them account to it. Everyone should do that, always. What's that called? Keeping your eye on the paradigm at all times while you do the dialectic, and as such you are managing yourself well, you are acting justly and never unjustly. It applies to men and women and all people. That's what we've seen in the Meno already. That's a paradigm for virtue. That should be done at all times, even by Jon Stewart and The Daily Show, even by the news networks, even by the law courts. Every politician should step into the law court every day and say, hey, not every day, but there should be some accountability that every day that they're holding true to the model. That's true for everyone. So, hey, it's okay to genocide some people, then that means it's okay to genocide you, because it's true for all people, men and women and slaves. Oh, the Palestinians are our slaves, so it's okay to genocide them. Well then, wait a minute. If that's a principle, and principles are universal, then we should genocide you? If that's the principle, that falls apart, doesn't it? So it's not a principle, therefore not allowed to do genocides anymore. How about that? Right, so not only does it give us moving from a who question, which is authority and slavery, to a what question, then allows us what is it? Paradigm. Not only does it allow us to be rational and mature and hold leaders accountable, but it also opens up the realm of being. So all of us individuals who might seek to know our nature, seek to know why we're here, seek to know the nature of the divine and beyond. Now we have a word in our vocabulary, in our culture, paradigm, that has to exist in being, which means being exists, which means you don't have to be a slave to believe this or that group. You can actually get there, which is exactly what we need to do. That's our job. So the world of being is opened up for everyone, meaning philosophy is opened up for everyone, because that's what philosophy is. Literally, philosophy, the love of wisdom, is the love of the integration of dianoia and nous, which is translated up until now as understanding and knowledge, but ain't, because dianoia is specifically understanding the realm of being, nous is directly experiencing the realm of being, and if philosophy is that and using it, then now we have the word being, now we have philosophy, now we can be rational creatures and do our destiny, and apply the same paradigm to uncover and remove our false, stupid beliefs and opinions, which is called philosophical midwifery. We have what we need to heal our illnesses, part of being a doctor, and Once we've got a healthy body, we can go to the gym and get an excellent body. That's philosophy. After we're free from our illnesses, applying the dialectic principles paradigm to remove what's false. By the way, when we get to that false belief that we didn't know we were carrying, we judge it. We judge it against truth and beauty and justice. We are judging it against the paradigm, so we need the paradigm to do midwifery. Once a doctor recognizes, oh, there are some cancer cells there, how does he know that they're the bad ones? He must be judging it against the vision and understanding of a healthy, ideal body. To recognize, oh, that's out of place. That guy has 3 arms. Something's wrong here. Let me go to my visualization and understanding that I'm always keeping in mind when I'm practicing as a doctor. Boy, there's 2 arms on that body, and there's 3 arms on this body. Uh-oh, something's wrong here. Same thing here. So we use the paradigm to be able to, and that's what Socrates is doing with Meno. He's recognizing he's got a problem. He's able to diagnose him. By the way, it's an idea of wisdom that comes from your culture, your family, the city next door as well, and your partner, and your teacher Gorgias, the evil Gorgias, like on Stranger Things. This is how it functions. This is what you need to stay in your education long enough to be initiated into the mystery, to reach being. And so Meno goes, okay, I'll stay. Give me the answers. No, that's not how you get it. I'm going to give you the paradigm so you can do it. So he gives him the paradigm, and Meno falls short. But then we are seeing how Socrates functions with his paradigm actually as an artist, and how does he take him? How does he function? How does he demonstrate the art? Well, he takes the quote, to desire beautiful things and be able to acquire them, step 1. Now, hopefully we'll be able to find, after we go through this, the structure of the dialectic within these parts. Then Socrates says, okay, let's make one change. By the way, when you say beautiful things, do you really mean good things? Not just look pretty, like a sandwich that looks pretty but has worms in it. It's actually a good sandwich, right? Yeah, that's what I mean, good things. So we looked at this, that game that we have on our cell phones sometimes, where you're given a word, you change one letter, dope becomes pope, and then you change one letter again, becomes poor, change one letter again, becomes port, one letter again, pert, and then you've done the job. You've moved from dope to pert by making one letter change at each time. In music, we talk about stepwise motion. Going one step. It's easier than a big leap. Or the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths, for any musicians out there, each movement around the circle of fifths. How's my memory? D-A... E, B, dab, G dab, F sharp, C sharp, and the other way it's F, bead. All right, I think that's pretty close. Is there a G sharp here? Yeah, I think so. B flat, E flat, A flat, D flat. So that would be G sharp or A flat. No, I've already got an A flat. Is it G flat? That would be F sharp. I've got F sharp here. Oh my goodness. All right, I know what I did wrong. I forgot the principle when I was doing the circle of fifths, because principle is what? While C is usually the middle of the circle of fifths, its opposite is this guy and this guy. F sharp, which is the same as G flat. There you go. Because C flat is the same as B, and C sharp is the same as D flat. So the two C's are on this side. So what? Well, so nothing. So I remember if I know the principle, I'll remember the circle of fifths. The circle of fifths are movements into different keys or different chords where there's only one movement. There's only one different note in the key of G as there is in the key of C. G has an F sharp. That's all. And then there's only one movement into the D. Oh my goodness, it's been so long. D has a C sharp? Yeah, C sharp. As well as an F sharp. A has a G sharp, E has a D sharp, and so on and so on. There's one movement, and that's pleasing to our ears. So the most common progression in jazz music is this one, play a D, then play a C, play a G, and then play a C. That's called a 2-5-1. 2-5-1 progression. Which is again, if this is a paradigm, we should find whatever principles that we are discovering and how Socrates is demonstrating is functioning to Meno. We should be able to wonder about and find analogies, metaphorical representations in other systems that also follow a paradigm like music. So you're learning about philosophy and you're learning about music. What's the principle? Try and make as little moves as you can as you go. Socrates tried to give him the whole all at once, but it didn't stick. In other words, Meno is carrying a false idea about virtue that he hasn't done philosophical midwifery on, so it's still there, blocking him from accepting the truth, even though Socrates has outlined it several times. It's too big of a jump between Meno's education and upbringing and the truth. Too big a jump. Ever done that before? Ever had a friend who always puts themselves down? And you say, oh no, you're actually fantastic. Everyone loves you. We all admire your contributions. We all benefit from what you say. What happens? Next week, they're complaining about themselves being rubbish in the exact same way. Almost as if you hadn't said anything to them before. All that work and sacrifice and time you did in sacrificing your time to create this fantastic argument, maybe even you structured it through the dialectic, so they followed it step by step, but the conclusion was too big of a jump from where they started from. And so that doesn't change them. They still believe they're rubbish. Ever had that conversation? Ever talked to a person before? We're talking about music. Famously, the Linkin Park lead singer got up on stage and says, I know I am successful. I know I have lots of friends. I know I have lots of fans who love me. But I still feel like I'm rubbish and useless. The difference was too big of a jump. Now you can say, you can make that jump if you are free. And famously, Dr. Pierre Grimes, on one of his last interviews, pointed out to a famous YouTube podcaster and traditional philosopher who I enjoy. I enjoy his stuff. I think he's got a good heart, and I think he's very clever, and I enjoy his YouTube sometimes. John Viveki, I think his name is. He interviewed Dr. Pierre Grimes, the author of Philosophical Midwifery, which is just a reawakening of what Socrates was doing, and said, by the way, I have never met anyone who's been free who hasn't got their freedom through philosophical midwifery. Even people who've had experiences of the truth, sometimes we call those enlightenment experiences. Sometimes we give them a title and call them a guru, or I don't know, whatever version of guru in whatever tradition. They're not free. Famously, they have their problems still. If anything, they've been given power or authority now to play out their problems even worse. I've only met people who have been free, who've got there through philosophical midwifery. What does that mean? That means if you still have your false opinions here, we should be writing this down, not just scribbling and deleting it. It's worth doing. Because maybe someone will want a copy of these boards one day. If they support on Patreon or something, I don't know. Okay, so we carry our false beliefs. We carry them. Carry them. This is his head. And this is that drip that anime people have when they're frustrated. Okay. We carry them. And we become free through philosophical midwifery. Confetti. But otherwise, the truth, which is in being, which is where our paradigm is, which is our principles come from, which are connected to. Let's do paradigm first. Truth in being, where the paradigm has its eternal existence, which is the P-A-R-A, which is the cause of our principles. What makes things true? This might be too big a leap. There. Too big. Oops. Too big a leap. Right? Ever talk to a person you care about? You've experienced this. Hey, Jessica, you keep getting into relationships with the same kinds of terrible boyfriends over and over and over again that treat you terribly, almost as though you're carrying a false belief about you deserving punishment. But really, let's have a big conversation over coffee about how the truth is you don't deserve punishment. Punishment is bad, doesn't help you. You are not bad, blah, 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 blah. Oh, you know, it makes complete sense. See them tomorrow, what are they doing? Dating another guy just like that. Wah wah. Why? Too big a leap. Now, you could make the argument that, hang on a second, if you are doing philosophical midwifery, that allows you to let go or give back. Try that. Give back, because these are not your problems. You're carrying them from your parents, and they got from their parents all the way back to the cave. You give back those false beliefs you are carrying. You're carrying. There you go. Written it down. That gives you a kind of freedom that only comes from philosophical midwifery. And you say, well, freedom to do what? Freedom to make that leap. What happened to my... There we go. Freedom to make that leap. There's a Zen story about a Zen student going to the Zen master and saying, "Oh, make me enlightened," or whatever. And then the guru said, "Hand me your cup of tea." And then he started pouring tea into the cup, and then it filled, and then it started to overflow, and he continued to pour the tea. And the student said, "Oh my God, the tea is overflowing. You can't fit any more tea into that cup. Stop pouring." And the guru says, "Oh, that's my point. You are like a tea that is full, teacup that is full of tea. I can't pour any knowledge into you because it would just overflow because you're full of stuff already. You need to empty your cup." Now, fun story, but doesn't mean jack if the person telling that story doesn't know the logos, doesn't know the paradigm, because the paradigm is also used for philosophical midwifery. How do you empty your cup? What are you emptying your cup from? Any kind of thinking? Wah wah. No, you're emptying yourself from the false beliefs that you are carrying that do not belong to you. That only happens through the art of midwifery. That will be that you can use that freedom to then discover the truth. Okay, but how many people have done that? Not many, if any. So what? So we have to learn how to respond differently. Like if you're a doctor, a patient comes in and say, "Look, here are all of the healthy habits you need to adopt. You need to drink this much water. You need to exercise this many times a day. You need to, do this other thing." That's not going to work because the person is already coming in with a whole bunch of, he's already an alcoholic. He doesn't have time to exercise. He's addicted to chicken fingers or whatever, chicken nuggies. There's too many changes to make all at once. So you outline, same thing with exercise. You outline step-by-step incremental stages to be able to change their habits, their way of being. So too here. So, all right, back here. Meno obviously is carrying around a lot of false beliefs and had been, and he's pretty. Talk about pretty privilege, that's a double-edged sword, my friend. Because if you're pretty or handsome or whatever, tall, handsome, rich, then the people around you are more invested in making sure you carry those bullshit beliefs that they have and they agree with. They want you to be on their team, right? You want the cool kid on your team, the good player on your team. So if you're really beautiful like Meno, they're going to go out of their way to do their best to indoctrinate you into their bullshit beliefs. So what? Well, so if you don't have pretty privilege, actually, you might actually be better off. You might actually be better off. People are less invested in you carrying their own stupid beliefs that they're just passing on because they're ignorant and they want a kind of justification for their own ignorance. But Meno is very good looking. Socrates said even a blindfolded man could tell you're good looking. Okay, so for people in that position who are most heavily invested in their ignorance, we make smaller steps. So we take his quote that he's already carrying. This. Desire beautiful things and be able to acquire them. Make one move. By the way, this is Socrates' art. By beautiful, do you mean good? Right? Okay. From there, another move. Let's introduce the word appearance. By the way, does it appear that some men desire bad things? So yeah, it does appear that way. So again, one move, one word, introducing one word, one idea. Okay, now, the next change, the difference between thinking and no, the word wasn't thinking, it was being led to believe. Let's get rid of this. Led to believe. This is the theme of the day. The difference between belief and dianoia and nous. Difference between belief and our own understanding. Difference between belief and freedom. Difference between belief, which causes our conflict globally, internally, and maybe even in the afterlife, and true education and nurture. So, and the beliefs come from someone. Who are you to say, you're the kind of person stuck at the stupid level of beliefs? If you're asking who questions. You don't have to be religious. You look at somebody's, online posts or whatever, and they use the word belief a lot, they're at that level. Don't have to be religious. I believe this. It's my belief that. Politicians talk that way, which is crazy. Well, I believe that Trump is bad. Who cares what you believe? Nobody. Well, voting. I'm going to vote for the person who has the same beliefs as me. That's cultish bullshit behavior. Team sports. We're not interested in team sports, we're interested in truth. So, led to believe. So why? We've been talking about how that's causing bad things. Now we have more of an understanding of why. What is the principle that shows us that beliefs are rubbish and understanding and nous is good? Why? Because you can be led to believe that bad things are good. Right? That's one of the key problems with belief. You can believe that Trump's for the working man. You can believe that capitalism makes everyone rich somehow magically, even though we could all just be rich if we didn't do capitalism. You can be led to believe things against your own interests. Versus actually recognizing that bad things are bad. And so, by the way, this is a question. Each level is a question. So he's asking this of the fella here, of Meno. Do you think that there's a difference between people who are led to believe that bad things are good, or do you think they actually recognize bad things are bad and they still desire to eat the bad sandwich? Do you mean thinking that bad things are good, or by actually recognizing that they are bad and nevertheless believing? Oh, no, okay. So you're right. Thinking. So we shouldn't have made that change to the word thinking and led to believe. That would have been too big a jump. Because we're already introducing a new thing. The new thing we're introducing is Do we think bad things are good, or do we actually recognize that they're bad? That's the change. And then Meno says both. Both. People actually recognize bad things are bad and still desire those bad things. Since it truly appears to you, Meno, that anyone who recognizes that bad things are bad would nevertheless desire selves. Again, the word autos. They would desire physical things. They would desire non-physical beings. They would desire the bad idea of themselves. Pathologos? Quite so. By the way, to desire, okay, so he still thinks that he's wrong, but that's where he's at. So where does Socrates go? Desire. So again, a new definition. So this could be, we've got 3 steps. Maybe that's enough for dialectic. Did we get a definition? So let's see if it fits. Is it a definition? So Meno's definition of what virtue is: to desire beautiful things and be able to acquire them. Did Socrates demonstrate something by changing the word beautiful to good? Did he then create a division between 2 sorts of people? People who think bad things are good, and people who actually recognize that they're not good, they're bad. And then was there a conclusion? Was the conclusion Meno saying, yep, I agree? So let's give it a different color. What color have we not used? Green. Is this a definition? Is this a functioning? Does Socrates take his definition and use it in some way? Hi, welcome. Just Germany. Welcome to the chat. Did then Socrates create a division between 2 sorts of people? Some people who think bad things are good, and people who actually recognize for themselves that they're bad. Again, recognition, something you see for yourself, different from belief, right? And then was there a conclusion of Meno saying, in the chat last time we talked about music and logos. Oh yes, we had a music stream. We haven't done a music stream for a while actually. Now we're in the Meno, where we're looking at the logos purely, the logos itself, which is demonstrated in the highest activity of humans, beyond music even, rational reflection on our idea of what good is, together in a friendly way. What's your idea of the excellence of a human being, Meno? That's the highest use of logos in our physical bodies as human beings. Although out of body is probably the same sort of reflection. Okay, so Meno's conclusion was both, it appears. So there's our synthesis, and then our analysis is, since it truly appears to you that anyone who recognizes bad things are bad would nevertheless desire selves, quite so. So there's our conclusion. Has 2 parts. Now, interestingly, when we use it, the first part, the synthesis, is done by the person you're talking to. Let's write that down. By the way, now that we've made these divisions, conclusion has 2 parts, remember? Synthesis, or the unification of the divisions. From these arguments, can you bring it all together? And can you spell it in a legible way? Synthesis, And that was Meno saying appears both. So, as artisans, we can recognize, oh, he's in the world of appearance. Just like we said, people who are stuck in the level of belief don't have to be religious. They just use that language. I believe. What do you believe? As a mother, I believe. Okay? So we can recognize, oh, he's using the language of belief. And then analysis, the second part of conclusion, is Socrates, the artisan, the model, the paradigm that we want to be, if we want to have excellence and be enlightened, do what we're here for. Socrates says, since it appears to you, okay, so he's pulled out the word appearance, that anyone who recognizes bad things are bad, nevertheless desires selves. So again, recognizes. This is the option 2. He's dropped option 1, people who think bad things are good. That's not the issue. The issue is it appears to Meno that people who recognize, have understood it for themselves, that bad things are bad, would still want that bad thing. That's his problem. It's only appearances. Notice how important is this bullshit way of thinking in our world. Do we justify violence because we have this appearance too? Oh, this criminal is thing because he actually recognizes what he's doing is bad, but he nevertheless desires to do it. So we need to punish him, kill him, put him in a prison, torture him. Somehow that makes society more just. That's our criminal system right now. Insane. To those who have read 11 pages of the Meno. Is that what war is based on? Oh, these evil Palestinians, they want bad things. They know it's bad, and they do it anyway. So they can't be reasoned with. Because reason would just be helping them recognize the bad things that they think are good are actually bad. And as soon as they recognize for themselves, not being told because I have to, you have to do it, but as soon as they recognize that the bad things are bad, they won't desire it anymore. They wouldn't do that. Even if they did recognize the bad things are bad, they would still want those bad things. So there's nothing we can do. I guess we have to genocide them. Bombs away! Kill those babies! Torture those people! And if they fight back, ooh, look at how bad they are fighting back against oppression. Maybe we should do more genocide? Bullshit. Nonsense. No, what we're reading here is the conflict is, well, justified by Meno's way of thinking. It can appear that some people recognize bad things are bad and still go on to desire them. If that's the case, then you can justify violence. That's what the word evil means. Evil is a supernatural force that makes people want the bad things even when they know it's bad. It's a fairy tale. Evil is a fairy tale that tries to create a principle in being by making it a supernatural being to justify the disgusting irrationality of this way of thinking. That people want bad things even when they know it's bad. It's nonsense. It's an appearance. Otherwise, hey, no need for conflict, just reason. What kind of a world would that be? Rational, mature, actually a human race, not a race of barbarians as we currently are? The next stage of evolution? Thank you, Socrates, for making it so clear. All right, so that's where he's stuck. Just like you go into a doctor's office, that's a healthy arm, that's a healthy leg, that's a healthy leg. Oh, your ear is infected. I'm going to ignore the healthy things and focus on the thing that needs to be fixed. So Socrates' synthesis or analysis, taking Meno says it appears that both, and so Socrates does the analysis. This is the conclusion. It appears, let's use a different color. So he's identified the problem. He has a false belief that people desire bad things, even when they're recognized as bad. And he's identified a cause, the word appearance. Appears, because appears is one way of thinking, not the truth. Okay, since it appears to you, Meno, that anyone who recognizes bad things are bad would desire cells. That anyone who recognizes, which is the word he introduced here, picking up the word. So he's, notice, we pick up what we develop. He introduced that word recognize. Meno introduced the word appearance. Now we bring it all together into a conclusion. Appears to you that anyone who recognizes bad things are bad, nevertheless go on, still desires them. Go on, desiring cells. Now, the word cells has that three meaning. You can desire physical things that are bad for you, eating the bad sandwich, being, a bad idea about justice, a bad idea about beauty, fear, believe that there are such things eternally, like I want to make a pact with the devil, as though that he actually exists in being. And also the oneself, desire to hold on to a false belief about yourself that you are not everything or the cause of everything. You are not the ultimate and transcendent. You are somehow inadequate, not good enough, unworthy. That's the three level of self. So it applies to whatever level you're on. If you're in the physical world, making sense of physical conflict, self applies there. So no more genocide if we get rid of this belief. The spiritual, are you afraid of the spiritual world because you think that there are bad things existing in selves? Do you desire a bad idea of justice? Do you think justice could be bad in reality? And finally, the oneself. Do you have a false idea of yourself? We call the pathologos. So there's our conclusion. So what? Now, the next stage. What does Socrates do now? He's kind of diagnosed where he's at, diagnosed his problem. Let's see if it fits. Let's see if it fits with our structure, because the next thing we should be looking for is definition. If we've completed DDC, maybe this book is for you. It's about logic and reason. Well, no, this book is about logic and reason. We're learning it here. What's wrong with Socrates? Why would I go out of Socrates to believe some other joker? We're learning how to reason. We're learning the paradigm of reason. It's called the dialectic. Now, it might be fun after we've nailed down how to do it by watching the ideal and understanding it and using it. Well, this is why it's a distraction. If you were to become a doctor and you were busy at school learning how to understand or learning an image of the ideal body, healthy body, and learning to understand it, and someone came along and said, hey, take a look at these weird people with all these deformities. Why? I don't know. Why not expand? Expand into deformities? They're not healthy. Why? Now, once I have a grasp of the model and an understanding of the model, and I can function with it, then it might be fun, especially if they're paying me, to look at some deformity and say, oh, I see where your deformity is. I can understand with reference to the model or paradigm where you've missed the mark, number one, why you've missed the mark, number two, and how to offer a diagnosis or a remedy that can benefit you. But until you've actually got the paradigm down, you can't do that. All you're going to be doing is confusing yourself. And if you're not learning the paradigm, you are just going to be agreeing with beliefs you already hold. Who cares? You want people to agree with the ignorance you already carry to make you stupider or more entrenched in your own ignorance? Why would you want to do that? I could just join a group who already agrees with me, and we can find poets that quote, oh, the founding fathers said slavery is good, so let's do slavery. Why? That's ignorance. Oh no, but expand your mind. Read this stuff about how slavery is good from the founding fathers. Or learn the paradigm for how to reason, how to reach the paradigm and being, and how to use it, balloons, so that when somebody says, hey, look at this this racist book that me and my friends read, you can say, oh, let me use my art to understand it, understand how high their level of vision is, number one, how high their understanding of that vision is, and number three, what level of problem do they have? Because all human beings who are not doing philosophical midwifery have a false belief that causes their problem. What's their problem? Number two, and number three. Number four, what's the understanding of that false belief? And finally, how well have they freed themselves from their false vision of self and their false understanding of self? How well have they also integrated the true vision of self and understanding of self to function with it to benefit? That's what we're doing here. Otherwise, I'll read some book and say, oh, I disagree. Who cares? Or I agree. Who cares? I don't even care if I agree with something. Why would I care about with what I agree with? Nothing in here that's good. It's being. Oh, no, it's not. I hope that didn't come off as harsh. Sorry, I don't mean that to come off as harsh. But it's fascinating because this is how we're taught. Doesn't it make you smart to read lots of books? See, what's that got to do with Bobsberg? This is important. This is how we're taught to educate. The more quotes you can fill a person's brain with, the more it appears that they are clever. But they're still doing the same thing as Meno is doing. You're still going to find a quote that whatever agrees with the ignorance that you already carry, that will support your ignorance. If anything, the more education you have, the more traditional education you have, the more famous people you can quote to support your own ignorance. Ever tried talking with someone with a PhD? Seen all these conflicts that happen around the world, all these clever people? I disagree with you because look at all the people I can quote. Well, hang on a second, what about truth? What is truth other than quoting people? Now, keep it in mind. Once we go through the text and we have a model in mind, we can jump into that book if it's not too long and worth doing for some reason. Like if it's a book that really resonates with you or really reflects your own way of thinking, we can, after we have learned the model, we can jump into the book, see if we can apply the art to see it differently. See if we can judge the author. Where is he at? Where is he stuck? How far up the logos did he climb? What was his highest vision of reality? Second, how well did he understand that vision? Third, where is his problem? Can you see his problem? Does he talk about beliefs a lot? Does he talk about appearances a lot, like we're seeing with Meno? How does that problem manifest in his understanding? Does he think that that there are people who desire things even though they recognize it's bad for them? Can we recognize where he's at and where he's stuck? And then afterwards, we can make a diagnosis. Oh, this is this person's problem. And then we can offer a remedy that might benefit him. He would need to read the Meno, or he might need to read this. And then if the author is still alive, we can send it to him in an email. And then if he emails us back, we can look at his response and see whether or not it validates our diagnosis. Did we touch a nerve? How dare you say, my mother always told me this, and my mother was a saint, and how dare you? Or, how dare you say reality is understandable? God is better than you. You think you're just as good as God? You are a heathen. You can see by his response, which can be fun to do. But I'm not there yet. I don't have the paradigm down yet. I'm doing my best to figure it out and share that quest with others who are equally interested in developing the art of all arts, which is the knowledge, understanding, and functioning to benefit with the paradigm of all paradigms, which will revolutionize the way we read other texts. No longer will we read a text and say, what does To Kill a Mockingbird mean to you? We would laugh at that. That's a stupid question. Well, to me, the mockingbird symbolizes Jesus. And what? What are you talking about? You're just going to project? That's ignorance. Projecting onto the real world the ignorance that you carry, the false beliefs that you carry, and then getting angry at people for the projection you're projecting. That's in Plato's cave analogy, by the way. We mistake the projections from our upbringing that we carry with us as reality. Keeps us chained to ignorance. Plato's cave analogy is a fantastic one in Republic, book 7, start of book 7. And it must be true because it's a fancy. I quoted Socrates and I even gave you the passage in the book. So, I must be clever. No, it's either true or it's not. So we would read To Kill a Mockingbird. Okay, how would you judge the author of To Kill a Mockingbird's development along the logos? If there is a hierarchical system of development of understanding that anybody can understand, then everyone is at some level along that ladder. In semester 1 of class, we learnt that ladder. Now we're going to read To Kill a Mockingbird and see what level along that ladder of development of understanding did the author reach. Is he level 4? Is he level 3? Is he level 1? Is he level 10? Second, what level has his experience of reality be? How high is his vision? Did he have a great vision of a utopia in To Kill a Mockingbird, but actually it was really flawed and the book fizzled? How many books fizzle at the end? How many books promise a great ending but never get there because the vision is lacking? We'd ask those two questions. And then we'd ask, okay, that's where he's at. Where is he stuck? So, where are you at, Meno? This is where I'm at. This is the quote that I have. Now, where are you stuck? We got that from this dialectic. He's stuck at the level of appearances. That's his appearance. His vision is low. We give him an F for his vision because his vision is in the realm of appearances. That's why it's comically tragic. He hasn't had a vision of the realm of being yet, or maybe doesn't even think that it exists. Even more tragic. So his vision is given, we have to rank him maybe a D minus. Now, and understanding of that vision. What's your understanding? People, even though they think bad things are bad, they still go on desiring it. So what ranking will we give his, how can we recognize his block in his vision and his understanding? Now we have to diagnose him based on where he's at and where he's stuck. To Kill a Mockingbird, same thing. Carl Jung, same thing. Albert Ellis, the founder of cognitive emotive behavioral therapy, how we teach understanding of problems at university. How far did he get and where was he stuck? L. Ron Hubbard, creator of Scientology, how far did he get and where was he stuck? Same thing for everyone. Carl Jung, Kant, Hegel, all of them, everyone. Because we're human beings, meaning everyone has a block. Everyone has a level of development they're at. The only way of freeing your blocks is from philosophical midwifery. And the Logos is an understandable paradigm, meaning we can understand everyone's level of development. That's the game we run on this channel. Philosophy, understanding the ladder of the Logos, where we're at. Philosophical midwifery, understanding the nature of our problems, our pathologos. And unless you've mastered both, then you will be functioning through and reflecting both. A problem and a level. So what? Who cares? Well, it's worth doing because some people are influential. Hey, wouldn't it be good to be able to objectively get his basketball stats? Not of Stephen Curry, but of President Trump. What are his stats of where he's at and where he's stuck? Because if we know that, we can easily predict the kind of world that would happen if he was given power. The same way, if you know Stephen Curry's basketball stats, you can predict what kind of season the team that recruits him are going to have. And there are some people, everyday people, who have an encyclopedic knowledge of high school and college athletes. Why not apply it to the Logos, truth, and our political leaders? Wouldn't that be a mature and rational thing to do? Yes, that's what we're doing. That's what we're doing here. Right, so first we're going to nail down that, and then we can look to this author. Maybe he's influential. Maybe you'll come back next time and go, actually, you know who I think is more influential in our way of thinking? Hegel. We should use our paradigm to judge Hegel's level of Logos and Hegel's pathologos. And then publish it to the world so everyone can recognize this person, Hegel, who's influencing so many people, actually has only reached level 4 and has this huge problem. So therefore, we need to keep that in mind when we quote him to justify our foreign policy. Jesus, he's a guy, meaning he's got a level of Logos, he's got a pathologos. Why not recognize both and publish it? Doesn't he have an influence? The founding fathers. Really, take your pick. The possibilities are endless, really. But we would have to, I guess, hierarchically rank what's most important for you. Because if you publish it, who cares? How many people have the level of integrity to actually understand, based on truth and not their beloved opinions, what's real? How many people are willing to sacrifice their image of themselves being clever to find the truth? How many people are willing to be uncomfortable enough and sacrifice enough to go through the process to become better? Very few at the moment, if any. So what? Well, you're in this group. You're in the channel. Why not find the sorts of thinkers and texts that have influenced you, whether you like it or not. Hey, if you grew up Christian, you might say, oh, I'm not Christian anymore. Yeah, but you're influenced by it. Your culture is influenced by it. So find out what are, whether you like it or not, the influences, the authors or people who are the influences on your life, and say, after we have the paradigm, the art, let's apply it to this book. So I can free myself because, hey, who's going to listen to me? You think a Buddhist is going to be interested in understanding anything out of their tradition? Do you think they're even going to like understanding itself? You think a Trumpist is going to want to reflect on their own prejudices? Probably not. You can. So we can apply the art to understanding where they're at and where they're stuck, the logos and pathologos of whatever author influenced you the most. In fact, that might be a really good thing to do, whether we do it on the channel or you do it yourself, in order to gain an understanding of these influences of causes so that you can free yourself from what's false. Like Socrates is doing with Meno. What was the influence on Meno? His family, his culture, and his teacher Gorgias. So maybe if Meno is facing some blocks, he can learn the paradigm from Socrates, apply it to his false logos, his pathologos, his incorrect logos. This is what I think it is. But also apply it to his teacher, Mr. How do I scroll faster? Mr. Gorgias. And see where Gorgias is at and stuck. Apply it to his people, the Thessalians, whatever they are. See where they're at and where they're stuck. Or the authors who influence their culture. Apply it to his partner, Aristophus. Because, hey, you're going to pick a partner who you think is good and beautiful. Isn't that what we're talking about? Desire things that are beautiful. So, hey, maybe this person reflects it too. Apply it to your family. And also see how you function with it. You are accustomed to a habit of answering in a fearless and grand style, like a Sigma male. So, very first thing Socrates says is, these are the people who influenced you. And so if you are going to learn from me, he says, Socrates, the very first line, hey Socrates, can you tell me whether or not virtue is teachable? Well, maybe Socrates can't tell him, but maybe he can outline and demonstrate the technique of the dialectic, so he can himself not be taught, but learn the paradigm. Not be taught a belief, but learn for himself the paradigm. And then the first thing Socrates says is, hey, you might want to, if you do learn this virtue, learn the dialectic, apply it to this person, your teacher, your city, your boyfriend, and your way of being. Equally true for all of us. We are Menos, in a sense that we all grow up in a family, grow up in a culture, pick partners that support our beliefs, have teachers. Often we pick teachers that already agree with our own bullshit ignorance, whether we know it or not. Again, it's not a blame game. When I say it's bullshit ignorance, it's because the ignorance stinks. Not because you stink or I stink, because we both have ignorance. And it's not, we don't stink for having gotten it, because it's part of why we're here. Literally, we're all here to be given a false belief, to pick up a false belief, so that we can master the dialectic on what's not true, because dialectic is about what is and isn't true. You got to do both. So we have to master the dialectic on what's not true about self, free ourselves from the cause of our problems, the false idea of self, while also part B of the dialectic, or part A, sorry. Let's look at it here. Dialectic has, where is it? Is it written somewhere? Here we go. Dialectic has 4 stages, but 2 categories. You have to master what we're doing in the text: definition, demonstration, division, and conclusion, or DDC. about what is true about virtue, but also we are all given a problem because we have to survive in the house that we're at, and our parents play God, cosplay as the Noah, and they set up these conditions that make sense of the weird way our family is, and we don't put it into words. We are not allowed to ask questions. All the things that are happening in philosophy are not allowed here. It's anti-logos, and we create a false belief about self and reality. So we all have ignorance. We all have problems. But it afforded us a way of making sense of the world. It afforded us a role in our family. It afforded us a kind of safety. So it was a kind of solution that worked at a time when we're in the house. But when we leave the house, we realize it doesn't apply to the real world. In other words, it's a false metaphor. We think the real world is like our house. Every human being. And that's the cause of all human problems. A false metaphor that we don't know we're carrying that thinks that the world is like this. My own father, when I got into philosophy, he said, "You don't do philosophy. No one likes clever people." That's bullshit. His dad didn't like him being clever because being clever would expose his stupid father, alcoholic, abusive father's ignorance. So this teaching, don't do philosophy, don't be intelligent, is a metaphor that the world is going to be like his house that he grew up in. It's not true. Of course, people don't want idiots. It's wrong. I had to, in order to do philosophy, I had to say, hey, look, this is a problem I carry that prevented me from learning. It screwed up my life. It's your problem, not mine. Have it back. And by the way, now that you've seen your problem, where do you think you got it from? Which is an invitation to a different game. Whether or not he takes it, it's up to him. How many lifetimes until he accepts the challenge? Up to him. Same thing with Meno. Whether or not Meno accepts the challenge to learn the paradigm, up to Meno. Maybe he likes his cushy life. He's really pretty. He's rich. He's got all these people who love him. So long as he agrees, he toes the line and plays that role. Maybe he doesn't want to sacrifice it. And maybe he's going to come back as a donkey next time. Or a grub. Or a worm. Or a fox. Or a hawk. Or an ant. These are all things mentioned in the Phaedo. Possible reincarnations based on the way we live. Maybe you get stuck in Tartarus in the afterlife, and you have to go through a whole lot of other crap before you're even allowed to reincarnate. It's up to you whether or not you want to take the challenge. Now the challenge is you're doing this anyway. You are a walking dialectic anyway. You are carrying a definition of yourself in the world. You are demonstrating it in your state of mind. You are using it division in every area of your life, your relationships, your jobs, everything else. And then after having all those experiences, you come to a conclusion. Oh, I guess I was right the whole time. A self-fulfilling prophecy, keeping you stagnated in the repeating cycles of problems, failures, and unjust actions. That's called fate. You're doing it anyway. The only invitation is, do you want to do it well? Because doing it well is doing it consciously, recognizing that you are doing side B. You are playing out a dialectic in your life, a conversation between your false beliefs about yourself and your ego or self-image, your persona. You are integrating the false idea into your soul every moment, every day, until eventually, as people grow up, you say, oh, gee, old people get really entrenched in their old problems. No joke. You will too. I can even see that grumpy old bat who lives up the street. It's written into her face. Her grumpy lines are etched into her face. Yes. And by the way, she always complains about having the weight of the world on her shoulders. Now she has back problems. Yes. It is the cause of our problems, our way of being, our way of talking. You are doing it anyway. The only question that philosophy and Socrates offers is whether or not you want to continue doing what you're doing anyway, poorly, what we call vice, or consciously and do it well. You're in the Dark Souls game anyway. You're in the video game anyway. Don't you want to learn the rules and learn the goal so you can have fun in the game? Or do you want to be a miserable NPC who's just doing the bad things? Do you want to be the bad guys? Really, that's the only invitation. Now, to do it well means mastering both. What we're doing in the Meno is learning this. What we are doing in the other part of the channel is this. Philosophical midwifery is the application of the exact same art, the exact same paradigm, with our eye on the exact same model of being, justice and beauty, that we use to judge what we are carrying that's not true. Our false beliefs about self and reality that we unsuspectingly carry with us, that we play out in our lives over and over again. We apply the dialectic to surface them, kind of like we're working back to find what the definition is. We have a false definition of our self and reality. That's the pathologos. We can see its implications. We can see how it plays out in our life and in our past. We can see the state of mind, tracing that back to the definition. So, by being a human being, whether it's Kant, Hegel, Jesus, Buddha, whoever, you are given a problem, you are here to remember what's true, and so therefore, in order to remove or become free of our problems, you've got to master this. To find out what's true, we are mastering this in the Meno. That's the paradigm that we can then function with and apply it to any other text we want to. So therefore, we are here in this world to do both, and both are the same thing. They're just two sides of the dialectic. That's the game. Oh, sorry, in the chat. I cannot focus on everything at the same time. Yep. So yes, I pick what I perceive and conceive. It makes ignorance for other parts of reality. Right, so I wouldn't say ignorance if you're consciously choosing. Now, ignorance is being a slave to your false belief that tells you, ignore all the good things about you that disagrees with this false belief about you. Or ignore philosophy and midwifery and instead focus on being a good sports ball player or being a banker and earning lots of money. That would be ignorance. Being a slave to the unconscious false beliefs that you are playing out. Now, if you're consciously using your mind as best you can, seeking excellence in whatever you do, what some people call seeking your highest excitement and doing it to the best of your ability without any insistence on the outcome. In other words, open-minded curiosity, finding what you find as best and most true and real. That's the virtues of courage, temperance, seeking understanding, wisdom, doing at all times justice. Then you're in the game. In fact, we should have a picture of what it means to be in the game. A little wizard guy, here we go. That's us, this is us here. We are on, if we talked about metaphors of video games and, yeah, that's right, you recognized it. Yeah, interesting guy, right? So we talked about video games and all other stories that depict the hero's journey. We are doing, if this is the paradigm of paradigms, if this is the art of arts, then we are doing the actual hero's journey. Yeah, he is all over TikTok. I've seen that too. It's on my Instagram. I don't have TikTok. Not for any reason. I just admit it. So, what does it mean to be in this game? Seeking excellence. Don't settle for half-hearted. Your highest vision, as he would say. Your highest excitement with excellence. Develop questions, so he would say, no insistence on the outcome. Questions, open-minded curiosity. Also, okay, this is, again, even this Bashor dude has a level of development and also has a level of pathologos. even interdimensional beings, they're still alive. So where is his limit? His level of logos development is quite high, but where is he blocked? He talks about finding the definitions and giving them back because they're not yours, but has he outlined the method? Okay, so we'd have to say quite high, but... And also, does he have a problem? Does he give evidence or use certain words that speak of a certain problem? Same thing. Again, if it's a paradigm, it applies even in different dimensions, even in different planets, even in the next life. Therefore, it's the only rational kind of education and nurture we should be doing while we're here, because it's the only thing we can take with us. Can't take our Bugattis and bank accounts, even our celebrity. Well, right, so to give a demonstration, so in chat I was asked, so who has the highest logos in your opinion? So if we were demonstrating what we've just been talking about, we would look to what logos points to where you're at and where you're stuck. Now, where you're stuck might be the word opinion. Opinion is, again, physical world, to do with personalities. I can have false opinions, yada, yada, yada. Who cares about opinions? But seeking the highest logos, that might tell us about where you're at. Maybe you're on quite high along the right path if you're seeking the excellence. That's what Socrates did. When Socrates was young and he met his teacher, I think Socrates was 19, he met Parmenides, and Parmenides outlined the dialectic for him, said, hey, if you don't learn this, you're not going to face truth. You're not going to reach truth. So learn the dialectic. And Socrates said, oh, gee, man, that dialectic seems complicated. Can you give me an example of it? Can you give me a dialectic of yourself? Now, Parmenides said the dialectic is what you use for the things that exist in being. Beauty itself, not a beautiful thing. Justice itself. Likeness itself. Socrates could have picked any. Can you give me an example of a dialectic on beauty? Could you give me an example of a dialectic on justice? Socrates went for the highest, seeking excellence, and said, hey, because you know what's beyond being? The self. He said, hey, Parmenides, give me a dialectic on the self. And what did Parmenides do? He laughed at him. He goes, come and get out of here, kid. Do you know how hard that would be? Do you know what a sea of logos I would have to swim through? I'm old, dude. Get out of here. And what did Socrates do? Oh, okay, if you're not going to do it, I'll ask your student Zeno. Hey, Zeno. And Zeno said, wait, whoa. Slow down, Socrates. I'm with you. I've only heard this once from the guy, and I've been a student for what, 50, 40, 20? No. He was 40, so maybe 20 years. I don't know. I want to hear it again. Get him to do it. Sorry, seeking the highest is a good question. What do you mean by the word mythos? So to understand what the highest logos is, we are in Socrates. So Socrates is a demonstration of someone who has defined the logos, demonstrated the logos, gave us many examples in many different ways, but he explains it in such a way where he gives us puzzles. So we are on a quest. It's like a game. It's kind of like Sherlock Holmes. We have to develop questions of the text and only the text. Develop hypotheses, ifs, to solve the problem. We have to look for key terms, pull out the key terms, beauty itself, justice itself, and the key terms relevant to the text, like we're doing here, appearance, recognition. That's what Socrates pulled out. Look for patterns, push the implications. We talked about that today. If you think this, what follows? We have to look for patterns that we put in our skill trees. Do you see pairs? Do you see triads? Add them to your skill trees. That's the game. And where do you look? Socrates. You don't have to go anywhere else. where do you look to do that other part of the game? What's the other part of the game? Where's our model? It's over here somewhere. Here we go. What's the text you look at to learn philosophical midwifery, how to uncover and remove the false definitions about yourself? That's this guy. This one here. Philosophical midwifery. That's what we do in the channel. So good question. Where do you go to master the Logos? The Meno. Now, not just any Meno. It has to be the Balboa translation. Why? Because as we've been reading, we've been seeing that the key terms that we are pulling out to discover the questions, to discover the puzzles, are not translated in any other translation. All of the translations of Plato have been stupid and stinky. The key terms have been mistranslated. The key passages have been reinterpreted. Why? Because even the translators have their own level of development where they're at and have their own problem where they're stuck. Huge betrayals to our intellectual and spiritual tradition. Like the word eidos, like we just saw today. What's virtue? It's an eidos. What's eidos? An aspect of beholding the realm of being. How is it translated in universities? Forms. That makes it feel like it's physical. And that's the way it's taught. It's bullshit. So you have to be in Plato to learn the Logos. You have to be in the Balboa translation because the one Balboa worked with a master of the Logos named Dr. Pierre Grimes. So his translations are accurate and contain the Greek underneath. So if you are unsure about certain things, like this word here, discoursing, we looked it up. Whenever it hangs on a word, you can actually go on the internet and look up the ancient Greek translation through an ancient Greek dictionary. The word is dialectic. You can read it. Dialegiothai. So you can do both. And every word is important. It's like a video game. You don't pass the painting which is missing a gem in the eye of the portrait, and I guess there's nothing to do with that. Or that statue in that courtyard is out of place. I guess there's nothing wrong with that. Of course there is. That's how you design a video game. If the statue is out of place, you got to put it in its place. That's going to open the next area. So too, if there's one word out of place, Socrates or Plato wasn't getting paid by the word. You have to be able to recognize it, and you have to have the text so you can go and find what the right word is in the text. It's always in the text. So, where do you learn the Logos? Plato. The Balboa translations of Plato, and there's a free link below. Doesn't cost you any money. Thumbs up. Don't need to pay $100,000 for a degree. You can do it anyway. If you want to give me $100,000 because I'm such a great teacher, then please do. I will use that money to start a Platonic academy. But you don't have to. It's open for everyone. And you're doing it anyway, you're just doing it poorly until you do midwifery, which will free you from the dialectic of what's false. Where do you learn how to do that? This book. There are other, and then after we get those down, we can have fun doing other books. The same author wrote this book, The Application of the Logos to a Conversation Between Jesus and Socrates in Heaven. This was the last book he published before he passed away this year. Kicks ass. It really kicks ass, but it's a teaser for something to come. Stories, mythology based on actual events fabricated. Yes, that's part of it. So we could say today we've been, talking about skill trees. We've been doing a lot of duads today. So we've got a lot of material that we can put in our skill tree for twos. We've been talking about our vision and our understanding of our vision. So where you're at. Also, where you stuck. Hey, where you at, where you stuck. The two questions we ask of people and authors. That's a duad, so it goes in our skill tree of duads. Vision and understanding, that goes in our skill tree as well. Philosophy and philosophical midwifery, that's a duad. So we've got lots of duads today. But mythology, you can add to those two and make it a triad. So you can say, let me just delete that. You could say, okay, so what is the paradigm for the education that we're here to do? What is the true art? What are we here to learn? Well, we've talked about the dialectic of what it is. That's philosophy, or the logos. And the dialectic is a duad, dia. What it isn't, that's philosophical midwifery. And the pathologos. So, but another way, what you can do is, if both the logos and actually, let's write it somewhere neater. This might be worth keeping on the board to refer back to. Let's do it down here. So here are some more triads, by the way, that we did earlier. Okay, so if we're here to learn what is, what is true, and we're also, that's side A, and we also have to do what's side A, what isn't true, side B. We can say in here it's philosophy, it's the mastery of the art of the logos. That's what Socrates says in the Phaedo. He calls it the art of the logos. That's what you're here to master. He said, don't even believe me, because someone's going to come along and say something that kind of resonates with the beliefs you grew up with, and then you'll be like, oh, I don't know what to believe. I don't even know if Socrates is reliable anymore. There's no such thing as logos. There is no understandability in reality and knowability. Don't do that. It's not that. That's a problem with belief. You have to learn the art of the logos. And as your question is, where do we get that from? Socrates in Balboa. Translations of Plato. That's where we get it. So where do you get what isn't true? What isn't true is called philosophical midwifery. What's that called? The art of midwifery applied to pathologos. Where do we learn that? The Orange Sutra, written by Pierre Grimes. Okay, Orange Sutra is this book that we read on the channel. Check it out on YouTube. It costs free. Of course, if you want to give me money, then I can do more of it and blah, 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 blah. But it's free. Okay, so your question is, what about mythology? In the Phaedo, Socrates says, the Phaedo that we read is Socrates' last day on Earth before he's murdered for doing this. I wonder what that tells us about humanity. And he says, okay, look, I'm going to help you understand what it means, what philosophy is, what it means to live a philosophical life, why it's important, how it's going to affect your death, how it's going to affect your reincarnation, but also it's important to present it in mythology. Because I'm not much of a myth maker. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to use Aesop's fables and change them to actually reflect the logos. In fact, the whole book has the myth of the Minotaur running all the way through it. So you can say that if this is the true spiritual paradigm, the true quest of man, you could say there's actually a third section. Why? Because if it's the same dialectic structure or paradigm, in both here and here, then you can represent it. You can represent those principles. You can therefore represent those principles through myths, stories, songs. So you can say the true quest of man has 3 parts, so it goes in our triad: philosophy, midwifery, and mythology. That would be the complete system. And that's what we do on this channel. So everything that we've been reading in the text about the dialectic, and we're going through the minutiae of how to do it well, how to master it, how to make it the best art. Hey, people spend a decade becoming a doctor. Why not learn something that's going to be even more important and spend time pulling it apart? That's philosophy. It's what we're doing. We're learning the dialectic, but everything we learn in the Meno, we can ask a question. Oh, if it's the same paradigm or structure, can we gain an insight into our other art, midwifery? Can we use one to illuminate the other? And then finally, once we get the paradigm, or as we learn, as we go, we're learning the paradigm that applies to both, we can use it in our mythology. Are you a musician? Use it to structure your stories and make your stories have characters that represent the principles and elements of the dialectic, which is kind of like what we're reading. It's both in the Meno. Are you a script writer? Put it in your scripts. Are you a writer on the next Marvel movie? Make sure you do it. Hey, by the way, if you do put it in the Marvel movie, it won't stink. It won't fizzle at the end because you are using the true paradigm. That's mythology. Use it in your stories, use it in your creation, share it with your friends. And those are the 3 parts of the true spiritual journey. What's true, what isn't, and the mythological representation of both. And it might make it more palatable, might make it more palatable, that's a bit ironic, than what I'm doing. I'm having fun exploring it and reading it and teaching how to read and teaching how to be on this quest and all that sort of stuff by demonstrating it myself. But I don't know, maybe that's boring to the TikTok generation. Maybe if you get off on this kick and you put it into your mythology, you can make some catchy TikTok dances that represent it, that are more appealing. And then, for the people who are really become fans, they might have questions about it. But good thing you've put the dialectic into your TikTok dance, so there are actually questions. It's not puzzles for the sake of, like all of the movies made this year, most of them anyway, the big budget ones, stink terribly. I can't believe how terrible the movies are this year. I think because they're being written by AI and corporate executives to justify their mega paychecks, while everybody else, the writers, are actually suffering from the cost of living exploitation that's being enforced on us right now. To justify their salaries, they're saying, I can write jokes for Deadpool. And they stink. And I think half of the time they're probably just using ChatGPT as well. And they stink. In other words, the people who do watch, there isn't actual any meaningful content behind the jokes, behind the supernatural characters. But if you make your supernatural character represent an aspect of the dialectic and have him deal with a villain that represents another aspect, and you put in it puzzles that like Socrates does in his way of talking, like Plato does in his text, you're actually leaving meaningful puzzles for people to get curious about, that they can apply themselves to and talk about with their friends and family over dinner and coffee, and come to a meaningful, true conclusion. You're doing the thing that all filmmakers and scriptwriters aim to do, only you're doing it properly and consciously. And in doing it, you're still doing the dialectic. So you're still practicing virtue. You're still doing your job. You've still got your eye on being and the paradigm of the dialectic. You're still on your spiritual quest. You're still meditating. So win, 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 win. On that note, we are up to, in the text, the next section, speaking of win, 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 always winning. Don't want to eat a monkey. On the text that we're at, speaking of following the dialectic, we have a theory, a hypothesis, that we are in the next section, because we're operating from the hypothesis that we are in the demonstration section. Let's see how Socrates is using it. And he's just gone through something we've just outlined. That seems to be definition, Meno's definition, Socrates doing something with it, functioning with it, dividing it up into its two parts, and then a conclusion. Meno said it appears to be both. Socrates takes that synthesis and applies it back to the aim of the whole thing. Okay, so it appears to you that anyone who recognizes bad things are bad, nevertheless go on to desire selves. That feels like an end of a sentence or end of a section. If so, the next thing in the text should be a definition. Let's see if it is. If it is, it's a kind of maybe not justification, but pointing us, that helping us see we're in the right direction. Is the next part of the text a new definition that would then follow these 4 steps? Maybe now that, and maybe this whole section is a definition of, because if it's a new section, it should be the demonstration section, meaning this should be the definition section. Has he defined Meno's problem within the bigger category of demonstration? So now it's dialectics within dialectics. He's given a definition dialectic, a demonstration dialectic, a division and a conclusion dialectic, and within which was the dialectic. And that whole section is the definition section. Now in the demonstration section, he's gone through a kind of dialectic. So we are wondering, how does this relate to definition? Maybe he is defining Meno's problem. So Meno started with the idea that, hey, virtue is being harming people who are bad guys, your enemies, and being good to your friends and escaping harm yourself. So in order for there to be bad guys that you can justify being bad to, i.e. the way that we do our criminal system, the way we do our teachers punish students, the way we do war and genocide, you have to have a kind of definition you're carrying that's false. For there to be bad guys, you have to already accept that there are people who recognize that bad things are bad and go on doing them anyway, which is not true. It's to do with an appearance. The Palestinians are just bad. The Protestants are just bad. The foreigners are just bad. How did they get that? Oh, the foreigners are eating your dogs. They're eating your pets. These are bullshit. That's propaganda. That's marketing and propaganda. Capitalism is the same. Whether it's marketing in capitalism or propaganda for political war hawks. It's using appearance to justify this. So Socrates has nailed it. And this could be a definition. So maybe the next part is within the demonstration section, the demonstration part, which should start with a definition of something. So is the next line of the text going to be a kind of definition of something now that we've defined his problem? On that cliffhanger, be sure to join the podcast next time. Thank you for joining me. Thank you for Just Germany in our chat today. Thank you for his questions. Join the Discord, join the Twitch, join the YouTube. Yeah, and I hope that this cliffhanger has enticed you to stay with us next time. And I hope to see you next time. Thank you so much for joining. Thanks for watching along. And thanks for joining the human race the way that Socrates is saying we must.